It's Kentucky Sports Radio on Talk Radio 1080. Now here's Matt Jones.
Welcome everyone, Kentucky Sports Radio, Wednesday, May the 6th. I am Matt Jones here live in Louisville. You can't give us a shout today because it is the Kentucky GOP Governor's Debate right here. This edition is sponsored by the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. Matt Jones, Ryan Lemon. Ryan, big day today. You feeling it?
You know, we've done some big shows, the Final Four, PGA Championship, Kentucky Derby, but maybe more buzz about this show than any show we've ever done.
Maybe so. We are in the iHeartMedia Auditorium, and so we are here for the debate. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to explain in a minute the format, but first I want to get my man Tony Vanetti in here. Tony is going to be, because he's got a better voice than I do, he's going to be our official introduction for this. So Tony, you have the floor.
Yeah, it's very exciting, folks, and remind everybody the television cameras are here, the print media is here, that this is broadcast over 35 radio stations in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. There's not a corner of the state that you can't hear this debate today. It's very exciting. Matt, I want to thank Matt for using his platform. His platform is very large, and today is an opportunity to where normal people like Matt are getting involved in politics, and I think that's very important as we move forward. All right, so we want to go ahead and introduce, want to get the debate on, and I hope it's a spirited debate. Good luck today, guys, and let's move forward. On your left, if you're in your car or wherever you are, the left speaker on the table here will be former State Supreme Court Justice Will T. Scott. To his left is former Louisville Metro Council member Hal Heiner. To his left, Louisville businessman Matt Bevin. And lastly, all the way to the left there, you'll find James Comer, Agricultural Commissioner. Gentlemen, good luck. Matt Jones, the floor is yours and the clock.
All right, there you go. Now, guys, let's go over the format, especially for the listeners at home. We're going to do this in two sections. This is a radio show, so I have to take a commercial break halfway through. But for the first 20 minutes or so, each candidate's going to have a chance for an opening statement of 1 minute, and then there'll be a question and answer period in a traditional debate. Now, guys, I've heard you're all long-winded, so I'm making the rule that it's 45 seconds. That's all you got. There's nothing you have to say that you can't answer in 45 seconds. Ryan Lemon has a bell. If it rings, that means we move on. And if not, he'll keep ringing it, and that's how we stop. Then I'll take a break, and in the second half, we're going to have 4 minutes, one-on-one, me with each candidate. And that's where we'll talk really about you specifically, the issues having to do with you, your candidacy, etc. And then we will finish the debate with each of you will have the ability to ask one other candidate a question of your choice. You get to choose the candidate, you get to choose the question, and they will have a minute to answer it. And if we have time, we'll do closing statements, but I don't know if we will have time. So, without further ado, let's get started. We drew lots before for the order. We'll change it up every time, but for the opening statement, you have 1 minute. Mr. Scott, Will T. Scott, you're up first.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Good morning, Wildcat fans out there in Kentucky. That reminds me of something I used to hear in 68 and 69 in Vietnam, but then it was, good morning, Vietnam. But, you know, I want to talk about the veterans here a little bit. Nobody's going to talk about them. You know, they've kept us safe in America for the last 25 years in our homes because they were either fighting or on guard overseas. And we have to appreciate our veterans here in Kentucky. We have 346,000 of them, and a lot of the young men and women who thought they had a career in the Army, Navy, Marines, or Air Force, they're in a reduction in force now, and they're going to be out of work. So one thing I promised my veterans, and I did this right after I did the 3,500-foot parachute jump down at E-Town. I'm still a parachutist. I'm an old paratrooper, by the way, but I promised them that my administration in Kentucky will be veteran friendly. We will keep the veterans preference, higher points, and we're going to have a $5,000 exemption, annual exemption for the veterans. You can put it on your car tax, or you can put it on your home tax.
There you go, Mr. Scott. Mr. Heine.
Yeah. Matt, thanks so much for setting this up. Great to be here with you and your listeners this morning. I'll tell you, I'm an unlikely candidate for governor in Kentucky. I'm an engineer, and I worked in engineering for 12 years of my life, and then I've spent the last 25 years of my life directly in job attraction, building business parks. Built a business from scratch. It started 20 years ago, and have given me the opportunity to work with hundreds of companies and decide whether or not to come to Kentucky. And if there's one issue, if you're just going to pick one out of 100 items we have to move forward with in this next administration, we need to find good jobs. We're about 100,000 jobs short in Kentucky for families to be secure. It's what I've done for 25 years of my life and why I'm in the race.
All right, Mr. Heiner, thank you. Mr. Bevin.
Good morning to those of you in Big Blue Nation that are listening in. Matt, again, appreciate you hosting this. I am a husband, I'm a father of 9 children, and yes, we do know where they come from. We did cheat a little bit, 4 of them are adopted. I'm a small business owner, I'm a military veteran. These are some of the reasons why I've gotten into this race. I would encourage all of you listening, please go to mattbevin.com, mattbevin.com, where you can read my blueprint for a better Kentucky. It is very specific. It talks about job creation, it talks about cutting taxes, it talks about right to work legislation, it talks about health care and education in the state, the very things we need to do regardless of who you're pulling for. We're all here in Kentucky and we all need and want the same things for our children and grandchildren going forward. I look forward to the next hour.
Thank you, Mr. Bevin. Mr. Coleman.
Well, thank you, Matt. It's an honor to speak to Big Blue Nation today. I just want to quickly introduce myself on the radio. I'm James Comer. I'm from Monroe County in the heart of Big Blue Nation down in South Central Kentucky. My wife and I have 3 children. I'm a businessman. I started a farming operation when I graduated from Western Kentucky University in the early 90s. Today, that farming operation is one of the bigger farming operations in South Central Kentucky. I've had success in the private sector. I've also been a state representative for 11 years, representing 4 counties in the Bowling Green area. And for the past 4 years, I've been Commissioner of Agriculture. I'm proud of my record, but what I'm more proud of is my plan to help grow the middle class in the state. And I invite everybody in Big Blue Nation to check out our website. It's jamescomer, COMER.com. Look at my vision for Kentucky and see how we're going to create a better state for all the hardworking Kentuckians.
All right, now those of you, thank you very much. Those of you listening, if you have a question, you can write me on Twitter at KY Sports Radio. We're going to use at least one of your questions during the show. So at KY Sports Radio. All right, here we're going to start. Mr. Heiner, you're going to be up first on this one. There are 2 Republicans in the state of Kentucky that are probably the best known, and they've become 2 of the best known Republicans in the country, Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell. You have to choose. If you were to describe yourself, are you more of a Rand Paul Republican or a Mitch McConnell Republican? Mr. Heiner.
Yeah. Matt,
you got to choose.
We've got 2 guys here that are completely different in their focus. One is running the U.S. Senate, and I think doing a great job in getting this country moving in the right direction. The other is hoping to lead the country with Rand Paul, and he has a lot of new ideas that are out of the box. So quite frankly, I'm supporting both of these guys.
That's not what I asked.
I'm supporting Rand and
that's not what I asked. Hang on just a second. I want to start us off on a good pace.
You're asking.
Politicians have to answer questions. I know you like them both, but are you a Mitch McConnell or a Rand Paul?
You're going to get a lot of this.
Okay, hang on.
And I'll tell you, the answer is, do you like apples or oranges better? And quite frankly, I like them both. They're completely different in their approach. I think they both bring a whole lot to this conversation. Supporting Rand in his run for president. I've supported Mitch in his last race and races.
So you refuse to answer that?
I support both. I support both of them.
Mr. Bevin.
Rand Paul, no question. He's a believer in the Constitution at every turn. He's somebody who believes in limited government. He's a guy who has come from the people. He wasn't the chosen one. In fact, the establishment long worked against him. There are many similarities. He's also a guy who has been in the working class his entire life, and then decided to step forward as a public servant, not somebody who has burnished his career or made himself wealthy at the expense of the average citizen in Kentucky. So Rand Paul without any question.
By the way, we will assume that you all like them both. But the question is, which one are you most aligned with? Mr. Bevin says Rand Paul. Mr. Coleman.
Rand Paul. He went through a campaign where he fought a lot of the same people that I'm having to fight in the campaign. Then he overcame a lot of negative ads that were proven to be untrue. The Aqua Buddha, for example. That's something that Rand had to endure during his campaign, but the truth prevailed, and Rand Paul emerged as a winner, and he's represented Kentucky well. So to answer your question, Rand Paul.
Mr. Scott.
Rand Paul, we got to have new ideas for a new tomorrow, and he comes with new ideas. He works outside the envelope, and that's what we got to do, and that's what we're going to be talking about here in a little while is new plans for old problems and solutions and moving Kentucky on into a much, much brighter tomorrow.
So 3 votes for Rand Paul and 1 vote for not answering the question. Now, you can do better than that, Mr. Heiner. I know. I got faith in you. All right, let's go to a question that's kind of in the news here today. Trinity High School here in Louisville has decided to require all students starting next year to be drug tested, not just those that play sports, but all students. Do you believe, and we'll start with you, Mr. Bevin, that all students in Kentucky public and private high schools, would you be for drug testing all students?
Drug testing every single student is cost prohibitive. Let's be honest, it truly is. I'm a former military officer. I used to get randomly drug tested. My job was to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That was my sworn duty, that was my responsibility, and I got randomly drug tested. I think we should have random drug tests. And with respect to which schools, I'll leave that up to the school administrations. I think they should decide, but I certainly would be supportive of that.
So you would be in favor of that. What about for just drug testing state employees?
I think we should randomly drug test state employees. I think we should randomly drug test every single person who receives benefits from this state in the form of Medicaid or SNAP benefits or whatever the case may be. And if you fail that random drug test, you lose your benefits, period.
So employees, students, and benefit.
I think we have a drug problem in this state, and if we want to be serious about addressing it, let's stop making it a safe environment for certain groups of people to be able to participate in extracurricular activities that aren't good for them.
Mr. Cohen.
Yes, I support that. If it's constitutional, I think that would be a great way to have an early detection of the drug problem in Kentucky public schools. I don't know that that would be constitutional, but if it were, I think that would be great. I would want my children when they were in high school to be drug tested. And with respect to public employees, I think they should be drug tested. I sponsored legislation, co-sponsored legislation with Representative Lonnie Napier several years ago in the General Assembly to drug test welfare recipients to try to reduce the number of people on the welfare rolls in the state. We have a huge drug problem in the state. I believe all government employees and politicians. I think if you had a drug testing kid here, I would volunteer.
That would add some intrigue to this. Right, all right. Thank you, Mr. Coburn. Mr. Scott, all students, employees, what do you think?
I would agree with Jamie. I don't have any problem testing politicians because, they're a separate class. But you cannot designate a class in Kentucky under the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and say, we're going to drug test everybody in that class. You have to have an articulable, reasonable reason to say that justifies testing somebody. Now, having said that, let me tell you, the cost is absolutely phenomenal. We spend $5,300 in our drug courts, and the biggest per year per participant, and the biggest cost is drug testing. And with the new jet drugs they're creating every day, we're missing a lot of them. We have to keep changing our testing. You can't afford it. And it's demeaning to 99% of the kids that don't take it.
All right, Mr. Hine.
Yeah, I do support random drug testing at all different levels. People that are paying taxes in Kentucky, they're being likely random drug tested. We have a real problem in Kentucky. We're third highest in the country in overdose deaths per capita. We've got a serious drug problem in Kentucky. So I support it both in this Trinity situation. I also support it for welfare recipients. I will say there's a little difference, though, I think, in our answers to this. Rather than just immediately throwing them off of benefits, what I would suggest is we move them into a combination of job training and rehab. If they don't follow through with that, entitlement should end. But I think we ought to try to move people from where they are today into back into society.
All right, 3 for student testing, 1 against. Okay, Kentucky Kynect. I think all of you are against it. Or well, I'll let you say that. But I think all of you I've heard criticize it. Here's my question for you. If you're governor, will it remain in place? And if it does not, what do you do with the now 350,000 Kentuckians who get their health care from it? Mr. Cohen.
Well, no, it will not remain in place. There are costs associated with keeping Kynect. There are costs associated with disconnecting Kynect. So we have to look at every option, but my answer is no, it will not remain in place. My plan on jamescomer.com focuses on getting people off Medicaid and into private health care. In order to do that, we have to improve the business climate to where we can have a more competitive advantage in attracting new industry to this state.
So those 350,000 people would just lose their health care?
Well, they're still going to be on the Medicaid rolls. We have 1 year. Whoever the next governor is, and I think it's going to be me, whoever the next governor is will have 1 year before the bill comes due for this Medicaid expansion. So we have 1 year to focus on trying to get that number on Medicaid, which is 25% of the state. That's not sustainable. It should be 10 to 12%.
Mr. Scott.
Man, I'm going to pull it down. And keep in mind, this is a portal where they sign up. This has nothing to do with their policy they get. And 34 states don't do it. But the point is, which would be the cheapest? One federal portal, where you poke up the state and then it says KY and you punch on it, or 50 state portals? By far the cheapest is the federal portal, and that's the reason we're pulling Kynect down. It doesn't have anything to do with their policies because they keep those as long as we got Obamacare. And Medicaid, of course,
But
is
you're
outside.
not for, are you for Obamacare?
I'm not for Obamacare,
Okay,
but
let's make-
Obamacare is Obamacare, and if I'm the governor of this state, I have to comply with federal law, and they
understand.
decide the issue on that.
That's correct. Mr. I.
Yeah. I am opposed to Obamacare. I am for the repeal of Obamacare. When it comes to Kynect, for the 330,000 to 350,000 that are on the Medicaid expansion, it's not sustainable. We don't have the $100 to $400 million by 2020 to pay it. It cannot continue in the form that it is today. We need to find a new form, a form that does a couple of things. One, moves people from Medicaid into work. So these are people in the Medicaid expansion that are already working, but they're at low rungs on the economic ladder. Other states are looking at, let's tie them up with workforce training so they can move up a couple rungs and into private insurance. Those are the kinds of ideas. Other states are saying, here are ways to build in personal responsibility, premiums for healthy lifestyle choices, premiums for if you choose emergency care. Anyway, we need a new form.
Mr. Bevin.
We do. It's interesting. Mr. Heiner has been all over the place on this issue, and I have been the only one from the beginning who has been clear both verbally and in writing that I will dismantle the Kynect program in the state of Kentucky if I'm governor. Specific to your question as to timing, we would use the open enrollment period during 2016 in that first year to transition people from the state level exchange to the federal level exchange. We would, upon doing so, then dismantle the state level exchange because starting in 2017, the federal subsidies roll off. It will cost Kentucky taxpayers in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year. We cannot afford it. And the premise of the question of just having access to Medicaid doesn't necessarily mean you have access to health care, and that's an important distinction.
All right, for this next, thank you very much. For this next section, I need yes or no answers.
Matt, there's an important distinction on that.
We'll get to that in a
question.
minute.
Okay, I mean, I think there's a difference on this issue.
We'll do it in
that
our
we need to talk
one-on-one.
about.
Mr.
Okay,
Right.
great.
Let's do, these are yes or no questions. If you feel like you need a couple words, that's okay, but really yes or no questions. Are you for the allowance for the medicinal use of marijuana? Mr. Scott.
I'm for what science tells us helps Kentucky.
So is that yes?
I'm for what science, if science says it's good for Kentuckians, I'm fine with it.
Okay, Mr. Heine.
We
Medicinal.
already have medicinal use that's available at the local pharmacy. There's a lot of other medicinal uses that are making their way through the FDA trials.
Yes
I'm
or
for
no?
it. I'm for it when the FDA approves it and it's sold at the local pharmacy.
Okay, so yes, Mr. Bevin.
Yes, if treated like every other prescription drug with doctor approval.
Mr. Cohen.
No, and I'm going to tell you why. We unveiled two companies that are located in Kentucky yesterday in Lexington that are making this from hemp and not marijuana. I proposed making hemp a reality in the state, so there's a better way to do that.
Okay, so 3 yeses, 1 no. Expanded gaming in the state of Kentucky. Should Kentucky be able to have casinos? Mr. Heine.
No.
Mr. Bevin.
No.
Mr. Comer.
No.
Mr. Scott.
Absolutely, it's the only way to pay down our $34 billion unfunded pension liability to 360,000 families that we promised it for 60 years.
So 3 no's, 1 yes. Gay marriage. Would you believe in the state of Kentucky that gay marriage should be allowed? Mr. Bevin.
No, and 74% of us voted that way 10 years ago.
Mr. Comer.
No.
Mr. Scott.
No.
Mr. Heine.
No.
All right, would you enact in Kentucky a law like was enacted in Indiana, which extended the Religious Freedom Act to businesses as opposed to individuals? That controversy from a couple months ago. Mr. Comer.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
We already have it.
We have it for individuals, we don't have it for businesses.
Then yes, I would add the business.
Okay, Mr. Heine.
Yeah, I believe businesses are already covered, but the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay, now we have one of our favorite listeners who has called in, who's a big Republican, who would like to ask one question. John Short, are you on the phone?
Yes, I am, Mr.
All right, John Short, give it to us. What's your question?
Okay. My question is, what important thing do you do to help benefit the Commonwealth of Kentucky? What important thing you do to help benefit the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
All right, John Short says, what's the most important thing you do to benefit the Commonwealth of Kentucky? We're going to make this 30 seconds. Mr. Scott.
Well, we got to create the split prison pass I've talked about. Our medium security system works good on mean people. It doesn't do anything for addiction. And when we turn them out the doors 1, 3, 5, or 7 years later with the $22 they earned that month in their bag of clothes, they go right back to addictive behavior, robbing us. We can add minimum security prisons behind our drug courts, make a great partnership. We can increase recovery 70%, and we can be safe again in Kentucky.
Mr. Heiner.
We absolutely have to grow jobs in the state. Tennessee and Indiana, quite frankly, are cleaning our clock because they have a business climate that allows businesses to start and grow in their state. We need to change the business climate. We have the natural advantages to grow jobs in the state, but Frankfurt has held us back. It's going to take new ideas. I've spent 25 years in job attraction. I know what we need to do.
Mr. Bevin.
We do need to create jobs, no question about it. That's how we're going to change things. We need to broaden the economic base in the state. I've created more jobs than everybody else in this race combined. I understand firsthand how to do this. And we've got to address our tax structure in this state. We've got to address the pension crisis in this state. We've got to address education and healthcare things we've talked about. Every single one of these things is a part of how we are going to create a broader job base in Kentucky. This is how we will thrive going forward.
Let's go.
My #1 priority is to create jobs in the state. In order to do that, we have to improve the business climate. To improve the business climate, we have to have a governor that has the leadership ability to pass a bold agenda through the General Assembly, a bold agenda that reforms the tax code and eliminates some taxes that hold us back, an agenda that makes Kentucky a right-to-work state, an agenda that reduces the regulatory burden on small businesses. I'm the one candidate up here that has a history of success in passing legislation. I can pass legislation to make Kentucky a more competitive state, which would create jobs.
All right, most important question to some of our listeners. You have a basketball team. You are the AD. You can only hire one of two coaches, John Calipari or Rick Pitino. You only get one. Mr. Heiner, you lead off. Do you hire John Calipari or do you hire Rick Pitino?
Tough question, Matt. Thank you for
That's
picking me
why I asked
first
you.
on this one.
If you're going to be governor, you got to answer the big ones.
Yeah, I am. Got a couple degrees from U of L. Serve on one of the boards there. Although my son's a UK grad trying to convert me, but I think Rick Pitino's doing a great job.
So you would hire Rick Pitino, Matt Bevin.
Rick Pitino, I think, is a better coach with players. Calipari is absolutely a better recruiter. I think with respect to coaching itself, I'd have to go with Rick Pitino.
Wow. I mean,
I know
you know which show you're on.
Just
asking, you know which show you're on.
But just straight up.
All right, Mr. Cope.
So you know I'm the one guy that's not from Louisville on here, but I'm going to pick Coach Cal. There's no question.
But you're a long time, you're a U of L fan.
I've always said I liked them both. I graduated from Western Kentucky University, but Pitino, he has gotten involved in the governor's race. He's had fundraiser for Jack Conway. I think that's something that has been surprising. But in the last 5 years, there's no question Coach Cal is at the apex of coaching.
All right, Mr. Scott.
Hey, we've got several great teams here in Kentucky, but when it comes to coaching, I mean, if you cut me right now, it'd be for Calipari.
2 for Calipari, 2 for Pitino. Ryan, that might be the one that people remember the most from all of
That's the hot button topic. All the reporters, you're seeing it right there.
Yeah, that's the one people remember. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to go one-on-one with each candidate for a few minutes, and then the part that Ryan's really excited about, they get to ask one of the other candidates question. Be interesting to see who asks who. There's a lot of drama there coming up when we return. This is the Kentucky GOP debate on KSR. We'll be right back.
Gentlemen, I checked.